Yes, sir, we're officially back at it. This is Boog Nice coming at you with my top 10 Hasbro Marvel Legends of 2018. Let's do it.
This ain't for no scalper. You a scalper? Then fuck out shit. This runs for them real collectors. That's army building and posing figures. Marvel Legends, imports, mini matey, I'm fucking with them. Hype beast, we know about you. Stay buying figs, don't know about it.
Alright, Happy New Year. If you are viewing this video on the day that it drops, it is January 1st, Tuesday, January 1st, 2019. Thank you for joining me for my annual top 10 Marvel Legends list. I usually like to knock out the top 10 Marvel Legends first, as Marvel Legends is my personal premier line. I think once again in 2018 they were the top toy line, probably just skated by as the top toy line in my personal opinion. Last year I said that they had took a step back from the previous year, even though in 2017 I felt they were still the top toy line. I think in 2018 they were at least on par with 2016, if not better. They put out a lot of great figures, and they've alluded to a lot of great figures for 2019, and there are a lot of things that are already on the calendar or have already started dropping for 2019. So yeah, I have the Marvel Legends Sauron Build-A-Figure Wave Wolverine here in front of us, or X23 female Wolverine. No females actually made my top 10 list for 2018, but I have her here because I did a review of this figure, and the picture that I took to kind of end the review, or the setup that I did to end the review, made it into Hasbro's panel. They showed pictures from, different photographers, different people in the community, and a picture that I took ended up there at San Diego Comic-Con. I've said this a few times, but I just wanted to put her front and center first to talk about that, and to say that there are no female figures in my top 10 list, and say why. I still do think that Hasbro absolutely needs to step it up and do better with their female figures in 2019 and give them more range of motion, ab crunch, double jointed elbows. We want to be able to pose and bend the female figures in the same form or fashion that we do their male counterparts. So I thought I'd just put that in real quick. But yeah, I'm going to be going over my top 10, and also going over some honorable mentions and talking about a bunch of different things leisurely, nothing too structured. But without any further ado, let's get into number 10. My number 10 is going to be the Okoye Build-A-Figure Wave Killmonger figure. And technically, I got this figure in 2017, at the very end of 2017. But as far as I know, this wave was slated for a 2018 release. It was supposed to be like January 2018. So I'm kind of fudging this here. But they did re-release this figure in 2018 with a different paint scheme and a 2-pack with Ross. So I don't normally even pick movie figures, or I don't normally even collect too many movie figures from Marvel Legends. There's only a few that I keep. If it's a Build-A-Figure, I'll keep it, and if it just happens to be really fantastic like this figure was, then I'll hold on to it. But this figure really stood out to me because it pretty much trumped Black Panther from the same wave. I mean, the villain ended up being the better figure and the more desired figure in that wave, in my personal opinion. And this guy is just phenomenal through and through. Everything about the figure is great. I didn't really have any gripes with him. You got the interchangeable hands, you got weapons, you got a fantastic sculpt. So number 10 is going to be Killmonger. And real quick before I move on to number 9, I forgot to mention that the unmasked head that came with Killmonger in the Ross and Killmonger 2-pack obviously could be swapped on this body, which basically made this figure even better. And the same thing goes here with this Thanos Build-A-Figure, which I've yet to complete, but I will. Now that we know we're going to get the full Black Order, obviously a lot of people will backtrack and get Thanos if they didn't, or at the very least get the one that was packed in the 3-pack with Iron Man and Doctor Strange. So when Marvel Legends does things like that, it definitely makes for some of the figures to go up on a secondary market, or for people to backtrack and get them. So I thought I would mention Thanos and mention that sort of dynamic before I move on to number 9. Number 9 is going to be the Lizard Build-A-Figure Wave Spider-Punk figure. And as most of you know, Spider-Man is my favorite character. So some form or some variation of Spider-Man usually makes my top 10 list. And this year it's Spider-Punk. I really love the design of this figure. The articulation is great. It's pretty much the Pizza Spidey Buck, so you know what you get there, with a little change down toward the feet, and you can see the kicks there, which is really cool. And you know, the fact that the guitar was white, and that allowed you to customize it if you wanted to. I love his vest and the spikes on his mask. Only other thing that would have really taken this over the top is if they included an unmasked head to reveal Hobby Brown, who's an African-American character. So that factored into my choice here. Same thing with Killmonger at number 10. You know, I just love that Marvel has given people of color more representation in figure form. And this guy was just dope, man. I haven't really put him away. Also, the fact that he was part of the Spider-Verse crew and that added another member to your Spider-Verse crew was cool. And I mean Spider-Verse from the comics, not from the movie. And yeah, man, so number 9 was Spider-Punk. And a real quick honorable mention before I get into number 8. Just wanted to talk about Kane, the Scarlet Spider from the Spider Build-A-Figure wave. Another great costume design, great articulation. They picked a great buck for that particular character. And you did get an unmasked head with that character, the interchangeable hands. If it wasn't for the fact that Spider-Punk was a black character, although we didn't get the unmasked head to represent that, then maybe Kane would have actually been my number 9. But I still gave it to Spider-Punk. Kane still deserves a mention. Definitely deserves a purchase. If you missed out on that figure, you should definitely backtrack and get him. All right, moving on. Number 8's going to be the Sauron Build-A-Figure Wave Pantsless Deadpool. And part of the criteria when I'm picking figures from my top 10 has to do with playability and fun factor. How much toy photography, how much A.C.B.A. am I going to do with that figure? Is it one of those figures that I'll take out the package and I just won't want to put down and I want to keep shooting and keep putting in setups? Do I have a lot of possibilities for setups, whether it be things that I come up with on my own or drawing inspiration directly from the source material, from the comic books or something like that? So Killmonger, back to Killmonger, was at number 10. I mean, pretty much everything I have to draw on there as far as source material is from the movie. And, you know, we only had that one movie with him, and he was a goner after that. So anything I want to do beyond that would just be something really creative or outside of the box. Spider-Punk, a character that was actually in the comic books, you know, you're going to have a little more to draw from, a little more inspiration to draw from, a little more ammo to get things done as far as A.C.B.A. goes. Deadpool, obviously Deadpool is all over the place in comic books and movies and TV and games and this and that. So there's going to be a lot you can do, especially with a Deadpool without pants. And originally, you know, I thought that the Legends version was kind of meh before it dropped, but when I got it in hand, I was like, all right, you know what, this is actually pretty cool. There's a lot of possibilities. You know, they stood up to the Figma version because, you know, first Figma dropped their pantsless version, but, you know, Legends did something a little different. They put the slippers on them, an ongoing theme with the footwear here with Legends. They got the sock with the hole in it and the pink slippers, and that was a really nice touch for this guy. And I thought this guy came out really cool. It's going to be cool to pair him with Bob once we get that Bob head that'll be coming out in 2019. And I mean, the possibilities are just endless for doing toy photography with this particular guy. And it was just a fun figure. So at number 8, it was Deadpool. But honorable mention, I want to talk about the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure Wave 90s Deadpool, which was an excellent release from Hasbro this year. Definitely one of their best in 2018. Didn't grab my number 8 slot because it was lacking a little bit in the accessories department. He pretty much just had the 2 swords, no guns or anything like that. If they would have packed him in with a bunch of guns, he probably would have knocked out Pantsless Deadpool. And honestly, this guy had the better articulation scheme. Pantsless Deadpool was cool as far as articulation goes, but this guy was on the bullseye buck, had the butterfly joints. You know, the comic accurateness is there. The likeness to his comic book counterpart is there. The fact that you're getting close to finishing your Deadpool core is great. We're going to get a couple of more characters from that team later on in 2019. And, you know, this guy just looks great, man. This is one that you should have definitely picked up. He was 2 per case, so it wasn't that hard to get. And if you haven't gotten him already, you should definitely backtrack and do that. But he deserves an honorable mention. Didn't quite make the list, but he's out here with some of the best from 2018. Number 7 is going to be the Spider Build-A-Figure Wave Dr. Octopus figure. So another criteria when I'm picking my top 10 of any year is whether or not that character was released previously in figure form, and if this new figure trumps the original release. So there's absolutely no question in my mind that this new figure from Hasbro shitted on the Toy Biz version, although the Toy Biz version did have the tentacles with the bendy wire. Now the fact that you were able to swap on the old tentacles onto this guy was cool, but Hasbro absolutely dropped the ball with not making these tentacles able to be articulated. That was just a fail. However, this was a brand new buck. It definitely fit in line with everything the line has been doing thus far. Aesthetically, it matches up great with everything else that Hasbro has been releasing. And like I said, it was absolutely better than the Toy Biz version. Also, you were able to kind of do some minor customizing and kit bashing on this guy, throw a lab coat on him, or do the tentacle swap that a lot of people were doing, and that made the figure infinitely better. So just having this base buck and then maybe doing some different things with the tentacles makes this guy definitely one of the top 10 releases of 2018. This was just a really, really good figure. So just backtracking a little bit from what I've cataloged so far. Number 10, Killmonger. That was the first time that we got a movie Killmonger, and then within the same year they released another version with an unmasked head, so there was nothing to backtrack or to go on previously. So, you know, that's why he made the list at number 10. At number 9, I had Spider-Punk. That was the first time we got a Spider-Punk figure from the comic books from Marvel Legends, so that's all we had to go on. But they used the Pizza Spidey Buck, which we know is tried and tested. And then at number 8, we got Deadpool. We've gotten plenty of Deadpool figures, but it was the first time that they did him without the pants, and that was something fun and new. So that was really cool. And now at number 7, Doc Ock. Although we did get a Doc Ock previously, this is absolutely the best version we've ever received. And a quick honorable mention before we move into number 6. I feel like if I owned this figure, he would maybe fall somewhere around number 7. I don't know if he'd be able to beat out Doc Ock at number 7, but I feel like this is the time to mention the Vintage Wave Vision, being that it was a redo on an old Toy Biz figure that we got, and Hasbro absolutely knocked it out of the park. Again, I don't have that figure just yet, but I know that it's an absolutely great figure. Only thing they could have done was included more interchangeable hands with that figure, open hands, and maybe they could have kept the the Ultron head, even though I do like that accessory in there. Hopefully we'll get a full-on Ultron at some point in 2019. But Vision definitely deserves an honorable mention. It's a classic Vision, and we're getting close to completing a classic Avengers. Coming in at number 6 is the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure Wave Deathlock figure. I don't think this figure is going to make too many people's list. I think it was a slept-on hit. This was one of my favorites on the year. Another one I did not put away. I left it on my desk for half of the year, and then I added it into my permanent DTOF display and just left him out. I mean, it was a really, really well done figure. Absolutely trumped the original Toy Biz version. You got a couple of guns, one really big gun. Probably the only other thing that I would have liked to see is some more hands, maybe a different head, a screaming version. That's kind of been the theme. But this guy has a lot of playability. You can put him in a lot of displays, from classic stuff to more modern stuff. He was even running around with the Uncanny X-Force for a little while. Maybe we'll get a variant of this figure in that Uncanny X-Force uniform. Originally, he was in his original uniform. And yeah, man, he looks great. It's great articulation. I think they picked the right buck for this guy. I didn't really have too many issues with him. You could probably do a little bit of weathering on him yourself to kind of dirty him up and make him look like he's been through some shit, you know. But otherwise than that, I thought this figure was really, really good. And I don't think a lot of people know what to do or how to use him in toy photography. I didn't see him pop up in too many people's displays. But I want to say, don't sleep on this guy. He was one of the best on the year. Backtrack and pick him up if you did not. So number 6, Deathlock. Number 5 is going to be the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure Wave Tiger Stripe Wolverine. And you just can't go wrong with putting Wolverine on this buck. Ever since they put out the brown suit version from the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure Wave, this guy has been in my top 10. And being that this is the Tiger Stripe version, the Jim Lee Blue Strike Force version, the fact that we're going to be completing our Blue Strike Force team in 2019 with the addition of Gambit and Beast really raises the value of this guy. My only gripes with this guy is that maybe they could have fixed the flaps on his mask. I've seen some people kind of, I guess, put a little heat to it and bend them out and fix them. But the fact that you can pop off this head and use some of the previous heads that we have for unmasked look for him, even though they didn't include that with the figure, you know, if you've been collecting and you've been picking up Wolverine figures prior, you still have a lot of playability, a lot of fun factor with this guy. I mean, the possibilities are endless with Wolverine. I've had a lot of fun this year displaying with this guy, and there's just so many things to explore, so many more things to explore, being that they'll always release a Wolverine figure. And if they stick to this particular stature, this size for him, then, you know, you're going to have a lot of options moving forward. So this guy definitely had to be in my list. Perfect articulation, perfect size. You know, everything about this guy was just great. The fact that you had the interchangeable hands, so that way you can have him with his claws out or have them retracted, was also really cool. So number 5, Tiger Stripe Wolverine. And a couple quick honorable mentions before we move into number 4. You saw a picture of Wolverine with multiple man there. What this multiple man could have been. I mean, the fact that they gave you the 2 interchangeable heads, or the 3 interchangeable heads, excuse me, was great. But if he had interchangeable hands, this would have really taken the figure over the top. Or if we had the ability to remove the jacket and have him without the jacket, that would have probably put this figure in my top 10 somewhere. Also, if it was a totally different costume, if it was one that we really, really wanted, then that probably would have put this guy in my top 10. But this figure could have been phenomenal with just a few additions. Too bad they didn't quite go the distance with this guy. Maybe if they put out another version of Multiple Man later, they'll learn from that mistake. But here's hoping for the best for that. And another honorable mention here. I feel kind of bad not actually including this guy in my top 10. But if I did actually give him a slot, he would be somewhere around 5 or 4. I just couldn't have him beat out Wolverine. I'm going to put Wolverine in way more A.C.B.A. I'm going to do more with Wolverine. I'm going to take him out more than I would Mysterio. And the fact that they're kind of playing around with giving us a classic Sinister Six, and they haven't given us the right version of Electro just yet. And, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. But this figure is phenomenal. It's definitely still one of the best on the year. You know, you can add to the playability and fun factor with this guy by swapping out the plastic cape and doing something cloth with bendy wire. Something I've seen a lot of people using the GPS lot cloak on this guy, and the fact that you can take off the fishbowl and swap out different heads under there and have some fun with that is great. Shout out to my man Dave Castle, who had the alternate glow-in-the-dark head that you could use under there. So it's a lot of options. I've seen people put lights inside the fishbowl and just a lot of different things. Now that does add to the fun factor, like I said. And this guy probably shouldn't be in my top 10 somewhere, but I just couldn't put him in over Wolverine, and I couldn't put him in the slot. In slot number 5 over Wolverine, or above Wolverine at slot number 4 or 3 or 2 or something like that. So he just got the honorable mention, but it is one of the best on the year and one that I would still highly recommend that you pick up. Coming in at number 4 is going to be the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure Wave Sasquatch Build-A-Figure. This was a tough slot for me to fill, but if I could only put one BAF in my top 10 list, it was going to be Sasquatch. In fact, I only put one BAF in the list. However, the 4 BAFs that I have in this grouping, Sasquatch, Sauron, Monster Venom, and Apocalypse, represent my 4 faves from the year. You know, it was just something about each one of them, aside from Sasquatch, that made me not include them in the list. It made me pick Sasquatch. I don't know. I just really, really like Sasquatch. It was a phenomenal scope. It was great paint work. The stature was there. It definitely trumped the original version that we got. And it made me want to get more and more dioramas and more versatile dioramas you know, outdoor stuff. Maybe it's something snowy I want to get in the future to represent Canada in the winter. And I'm excited to see them move forward and complete Alpha Flight and maybe even Omega Flight. But with the others that I mentioned, Sauron, I was a little disappointed with the head and neck articulation. Maybe if the wings had one more point of articulation, I would have picked him. Monster Venom, maybe if it was interchangeable head and hands and some options with the tendrils, but I really like that option and the possibility of completing the Thunderbolts team with Monster Venom. Apocalypse, I wanted more head and hands included immediately. I like the fact that they wanted to give you an extra part with Archangel and this and that, but if he had a relaxed face, that may have actually taken him over the top for me, or open hands. Just wanted more options. Even though I didn't get that with Sasquatch, for whatever reason, he was still my top pick. I want to take a moment to also make sure you guys check out the Articulated Comic Book Art Instagram and check out my man Which Wands' ranking of the Hasbro Marvel Legends from 2018. I think he did a great job. I agreed with some of his picks, or I agreed with his order that he put things in. So you should definitely check that out. And yeah, this was my number 4 though, Sasquatch Build-A-Figure. And a real quick honorable mention before we get into number 3, the Legendary Riders, Ghost Rider, or the Legendary Riders line in general. I really like the fact that Hasbro introduced that this year and that they're going to continue that. We're going to be getting a damn Professor X and a hover chair in 2019. But this was probably the best rider that came out. The fact that the effects were removable and you can use them in different things. You know, it would have been nice if we had a powered down Johnny Storm, not Johnny Storm, a powered down Johnny Blaze head. I saw my man Marty do something with that. I guess a picture will be popping up here. But this was just great. This was the best out of the lot so far. Black Widow was cool, but Ghost Rider deserves a mention. I really liked the price point. I liked everything about this. You know, the fact that they gave us that older Ghost Rider that was hard to get, but gave us the classic look for him. Gave us the bike. You could break the bike down. You could customize the bike if you want it. Just so many different options. A lot of playability. Great fun factor with this guy. My number 3 is going to be the Okoye Build-A-Figure Wave All New, All Different Iron Man. And I'm kind of fudging this one here like I did with Killmonger, because I definitely got this figure at the end of 2017, although it was slated for a 2018 release. So technically it is a 2018 figure. And I talked about this figure last year in my top 10 list. I think it might have made the top 10, or it was honorable mention. Either way, I'm including it again because I just couldn't put this figure down, couldn't put him away. It is absolutely the best Iron Man figure that we ever received from Marvel Legends. He had interchangeable hands. He had an unmasked Tony Stark head. The sculpt, the design, everything here was on point, and you got all of that for $20, and he just looks phenomenal, man. He is a really attractive looking figure. And, you know, like I said, I couldn't put him away, man. We completed our all new, all different Avengers with this guy. All of the team members looked comic accurate. They all looked great aesthetically. They looked good together. And this was one that I bought twice. Pretty much every figure that I mentioned in my top 10, I bought twice or thrice. And that was part of the criteria as well. If I felt so strongly about the figure that I wanted to have a couple just in case something happened to one, or if I wanted to do some kit bashing or something like that, if Hasbro made me go out and spend twice on any one figure, then, you know, it was in consideration for my top 10. So number 3, Iron Man. Number 2 is going to be the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure Wave 90s Cable. If you saw my review on this figure, you probably already knew that this was going to make my top 10 and make it somewhere close to number 1. This was absolutely a figure that I did not bag up in 2018. I did not put him in a box. He stayed on my desk the entire year. I messed around with him for a full year, and I just love this figure, man. The size, the comic accurateness, the guns that we had never received before. You know, they looked very 90s-esque, and this really got a lot of people excited about completing our 90s X-Force team. He looked great with the 90s Deadpool from the same wave, and this guy was just great, man. He beat out Bishop, who was another great 90s figure for my number 2 slot. The white guy beat out the black guy in in this instance, but Cable was definitely the better figure over Bishop, in my personal opinion. I just really liked what they did here. Only other thing that could have taken it over the top is more hands, a different head, something like that. But I can see them using this buck and using this sort of formula again for future Cable figures. So I'm interested for that. And yeah, man, this one was just great, man. If you weren't able to get this guy, then you absolutely missed out. I picked this guy up 3 times, and I'm happy with every single purchase of the same figure that I made in 2018. So Cable was my number 2. And number 1, numero uno. No surprises here, I'm sure. I'm sure this guy made plenty of people's list as their number 1 figure, or at least made it into their top 10. This is the Walgreens exclusive Thing. This was Hasbro's best figure on the year. What a massive figure. A lot of bang for your buck. This is a lot of plastic for 20 bucks. You got interchangeable heads, interchangeable hands. I couldn't ask for much more except them maybe including a trench coat and a hat. But the fact that you could swap on the trench coat and hat from the old Toy Biz version, or go the GPS lot route and get a trench coat, made this figure even better. I would have been sad if we didn't have a angry face and have the relaxed face. I would have been sad if we didn't have 2 fists, or if they just gave us 1 fist and 1 open hand like we got with Sasquatch. None of that. They went the extra mile with this guy, packed in a lot in a clamshell. It wasn't a builder figure. It was a single carded release, and it was the best Marvel Legend that came out in 2018. One of their best of all time. Not to mention that he completed our Fantastic Four, gave us a very aesthetically pleasing Fantastic Four, gave us our best version of Fantastic Four from Marvel Legends, right in time for Disney, Marvel to acquire the rights for Fantastic Four from Fox. So we'll see how that pans out. It's not like they're not going to use this buck again, maybe for a thing with long pants or something like that, or other Rocky characters. So I'm excited to see what they do with that. We got Toy Fair right around the corner in February, so I'm sure we'll hear some things not only about Thing or Fantastic Four related characters, but a lot of things on the horizon. And man, I've been rocking out for over 20 minutes, I'm sure. I kind of breezed through these last 4. This was over a few days. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you to anybody's picture that I used in this whole little montage. And I definitely have more top 10 videos to put out. I have my top 10 figures from any particular wave that I want to do, and then A.C.B.A. is going to have a not really a top 10, but a top figure from every major line that should be going up on the Instagram and on the A.C.B.A. fan page on Facebook soon. So look out for that. I got a lot of videos that I want to do. I was a little behind in these first few days of 2019, but I'm poised and I'm ready to go. Thanks for hanging out. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.
That's crispy.